You might ask yourself, well, why have children? Well, let's look at the objections first. The planet has too many people on it. It's like, no, we're not accepting that argument. First of all, as population has increased over the last 40 years dramatically, people have got much, much richer. Not just a little bit, but a lot. And so what that indicates absolutely clearly is that more people produce more wealth, not less. And then you might say, well, wealth destroys the planet. And I would say, you think wealth destroys the planet? Try and force poverty to see what destroys the planet. And all the data that I've been able to accumulate indicates that the fastest way forward to a sustainable future is to ameliorate absolute poverty at the lowest level of the hierarchy of economic security and opportunity. Period. And then the economists have been fighting with the biologists, the Malthusian biologists, for 50 years about whether human ingenuity can remove us from a landscape of privation and want and Malthusian population explosion disaster. And the economists have won the argument every single time it was clearly formulated and clearly put forth as a proposition by the Malthusian biologists. Because it seems to be the case that the human imagination, untrammeled and oriented properly, can continually make more out of less. And if you don't believe that, then just think a little bit about computational capacity and the fact that every year and a half our computational capacity doubles with the utilization of less and less resources. So the notion that we're born into a landscape of inevitable scarcity, wrong. And it's not just wrong, it's deeply anti-human, and sometimes it's so deeply anti-human that it borders on the demonic and genocidal. And you might say that's an overstatement. Goethe, Faust, Mephistopheles, the figure of Lucifer or Satan. What's Mephistopheles' credo in Faust? Life is so bitter and so full of betrayal and malevolence that it would be better if nothing existed at all. That's the Mephistophelian creed. And that's a very deep argument, and there isn't any argument that's more wrong. So in the opening scenes of Genesis, when God creates the world, when order extracts the world out of chaos, God states repeatedly, and it was good. And so the idea is that the reality that emerges out of the truthful and loving confrontation with chaotic possibility is good if it's incarnated properly. And that's part of the challenge in a marriage, is how to set the marriage up so that the joint personality, which is an analog of Christ or the Word in the Christian tradition, faces the potential of the future and structures it so that it's good. And then you bring children into that, and that's good too. Okay, then you might say, well, what about the responsibility of children? It's like, well, first of all, what do you want? You don't want responsibility? What do you want instead? You want nothing? You want nihilism? You want cynicism? You want immaturity? You want dependence? You want this narrow hedonism that sacrifices even yourself to the demands of the moment? We could say something else about that too. You might say, well, I want to be free to pursue what I want to pursue. It's like, what you want to pursue, eh? Who's the you we're talking about here? So you're satisfying your lust, you're satisfying your gluttony, you're satisfying your envy, you're satisfying your rage, you're satisfying your sense of victimization. What makes you think that those aren't gods that are ruling you? You think that's you and your freedom to be as impulsive hedonically as you want? Why aren't you just in the grip of a lesser devil? Because that's exactly what it looks like to me, and it certainly plays out that way in people's lives. That short-term impulsive hedonism, which is the lack of the sacrificial mentality, that produces nothing but chaotic disaster, anxiety, misery, a decrement in happiness overall. Certainly no noble pursuit, no adventure, nothing but a pathetic, cringing, oldest frat boy at the party nihilism by the age of 40. There is nothing good about that. And so you take on the responsibility of a marriage. Voluntarily, as an adventure, you take on the responsibility of children. It's good to bring children into the world. It's proper to bring them into a well-constituted marriage. And then you might say, well, what's on the upside? You know, is it all burden and responsibility? And the answer to that is, Well, you have people around you that you love, hypothetically, your family members, and you're pretty happy that you have a family, so you're not completely alone. And I know sometimes people have miserable, disjointed, horrible families, but usually even in those situations when a mother or father dies, the children grieve. So there's even value to be found there. It's like you got a family. It's like, you could expand that family. You could have kids, and then all of a sudden you'd have more people who are just as important to you as the most important people in your life has ever been. Now, why is that a problem? And then there's more. That child wants more than anything else to have the best possible relationship with you that anyone ever had with anyone. That's what they want. And you could have that with the child if you got your act together. And so then you could be surrounded by people who have the best relationship with you that there could possibly be. And that could last for the rest of your life. It's like, where's the problem here? And then you think, well, kids, they interfere with what do they interfere with exactly? Like cocaine-fueled binge parties? Yeah, they interfere with that. And maybe that's good because then you won't die stupidly face down in a ditch. And I can say that with some authority because I had clients who died exactly that way. And I wouldn't recommend it, precisely. And children, they reward you like mad, as long as you put down a minimum of rules and you have some order in the household and some predictability so that they don't get hot or cold or wet or tired or hungry. That's about the whole limit of child catastrophe. So if you can get that under control, you pretty much got it. They're so much fun to be around that why would you do anything else? As a woman, well, you have the opportunity for a lot of cuddling and intimate love, and women, good mothers, are really good at that, especially with infants. They're very good at seeing the nascent person and establishing a relationship very early on. Once the child's old enough to engage in a little bit of play, rough and tumble play, which is more on the male side, then that's just a continual blast. And part of what you end up doing with kids, which is kind of sad, is they're so much fun that half the time what you do is discipline them because they're having too much fun.